Hello and welcome back to the Nasty Metal Production channel here at YouTube, and welcome to another Friday review. And today I will be reviewing the debut full-length album from Project Resurrect. It is titled False Reality, and it was independently released on May 7th of this year, both digitally and physically on CD. So, Project Resurrect. Formed in 2016, and they are based out of New York City, basically, just New York. And it right now only consists of 3 members. And really, looking at, of course, Metal Archives, this is the only thing that they released so far. Again, they were formed in 2016, but they didn't release anything yet until this year. So this really is their debut. Alright, so I guess without further ado, let me just get into my thoughts on the debut, or the first release from New York's Project Resurrect False Reality. Let me get into it. Alright, so, False Reality. So, before I really give any of my thoughts on this album right here, you know what I have to do. I have to do a track listing rundown so I can tell you folks what are the songs on this album and how many songs are on this album. And so far, we have only about 8 songs, and its time length is about 37 minutes and 48 seconds. So, let me see that again. Yes, I am correct, because I'm still pretty far, just a little bit from, the computer screen here, because I have to look at it so I can read the track listing. And so let's get into me reading the track listing here. So, what begins with the album? Well, what begins is We Are One. Then, of course, we then go into Keep Moving On. Then into Kill or Be Killed. Then into Dead Mountain. Then, of course, into Ride or Die. Yeah, I was about to say Riddle, but that's because I'm starting to get almost a little bit too repetitive in reading that fucking word. But it says Ride or Die. Then, of course, into No Cure. Then Blood on My Hands. And then finally ending with In the Dream. So there's your 8 songs. So, this album right here, since this is their very first release, and yes, it is their first, like I've stated, they didn't release anything else before this one. No demos, no EPs, no live releases, no rehearsals, no nothing. This is what they begin their discography with. This is what they begin with, their just the process of recording recording music. This is what they begin with, is with a first full-length album. So just from here to that, then, since this is pretty much what everyone is going to get their first taste of when listening to Project Resurrect, I can tell you is that this is pretty much, I don't want to say middle of the road, because this is at least, good enough modern middle of the road power metal, or at times melodic speed metal, heavy metal. It's very melodic in terms of its riffs and structuring, but it's definitely still power metal. It definitely still sounds like a modern day US power metal, with, again, that's very melodic. At times, kind of trying to create some hooks, definitely melodic hooks, for example, and catchy choruses. And again, very fast-paced drumming, but not really throughout the entire album is it all completely double bass like you expect with a lot of modern day power metal bands, especially modern day power metal bands out of the United States. I mean, there are some similarities to Riot, especially the more recent material from Riot, and there may be some similarities, but I think it's a little bit more toned down in terms of just the musically and the structuring and the overall pacing. It's a lot more toned down because there's definitely plenty of mid-paced material on this album. For example, maybe like with what I remember, either Ride or Die, No Cure, and here and there maybe Killed or Be Killed, or In the Dream. Those are definitely seem to be very mid-paced stuff, but you get a lot of fiery tracks that you expect from a lot of modern day US power metal bands, especially with songs like the opening track, We Are One, or Keep Moving On, and Dead Mountain, or of course even into I believe also like Blood on My Hands might be one of them. It's been a while, even though I still have a slightly fresh memory with this album, but it's still that this is all that I can think of, because it has a nice sort of mixture between sort of mid-paced stuff, some slightly slower stuff here and there. That there's definitely some songs here that definitely kind of slow things down, especially with songs like either Killed or Be Killed or Dead Mountain, where it really slows some of the, like, within to the song, things will definitely get slowed down in terms of the pacing. But for the most part, everything's at least still pretty much, standard modern American power metal, basically, is what I like to just refer to. It still takes its influence from the European stuff, but it definitely still is what you come to expect from a lot of that. But it's still done very nicely, and still has a nice sort of flow going on to the album. It still is very well recorded. At times a little raw, because of due to the mixing and the overall guitar tones and so on. The recording quality is still a little rough in some areas, but it still has a nice sort of crisp to it that you can make out most of the instruments, especially with in terms of the vocal department. Everything is mixed decently on this album. Again, nothing really here that completely stands out at me, because everything all kind of just blends in within the album, to where it just becomes very just what you come to expect, I guess, to the best. I almost had a word there, but then I kind of left my brain for some reason. Still, I accidentally drew a blank. Even though you kind of get what I'm kind of saying, though, with this album. Like, everything at least has a way of blending in, where nothing really completely stands out, but still, everything is still played nicely, that I can still listen to. It still has a very good flow going on with the album. I do want to kind of mention, though, when it comes to the lyrical department, some of this is still very what you kind of expect with a lot of power metal, though at times it's not. It still has a very sort of almost futuristic or sci-fi feel going on with some of the album. But with the song like No Cure, I really want to kind of bring up, because it's one that really stood out to me in terms of its lyrics, especially with the middle of the song where they're taking a lot of news clips, where it just hit me. I'm wondering, because it just seems so coincidental, though, that it has to be a song about COVID-19. They decided to write a song about the fucking pandemic, basically. And that's one thing that struck me, especially when they're using a lot of the news clips, which has to be actual news clips taken from online and whatnot. Because it just hit me with a song like No Cure. It makes me wonder if they're really kind of tying in a lot of more recent events into their lyrical into their lyrical department here for their songwriting, which is interesting. It's nothing new. A lot of bands were, even back then, had ways of throwing in a lot of current event stuff into their lyrical department, into their lyrical ideas, into their writing on albums. It's nothing new. I mean, Megadeth, for example, or even Running Wild, actually, funny enough, they even mentioned them for an obscure reference on Bread and Exile. There was a lot of current event stuff that was actually added into the lyrics on, like, Bread and Exile, and Megadeth is one of the biggest examples, too, within politics, though. But this one kind of throws a lot of more current events into the lyrical writing on this album, and No Cure is one of the ones that really stands out into that department here. And it's interesting, but it's something that I don't know if it's probably too soon, because it still feels kind of touchy, especially if you're naming it No Cure. I hope that it's not about COVID-19, because when you're kind of naming it No Cure, it makes it seem like you're really are painting a bleak, more of a bleak picture than really something that's supposed to add in any hope. And that, I guess, in many ways, it might be a knock from me on this album, because I don't think that's a great idea to write a lot of stuff that might be that bleak, because of, come on. Either way, that's just my real honest opinion. I hope it's not really about COVID-19, because again, it still seems kind of touchy And while it may seem like I might be a little offended, I'm not that offended. I'm just a little bit kind of surprised, taken back that so soon we have at least a band here, a metal band, an up-and-coming metal band, already adding in or coming up with this, or adding in current events into their lyrical writing. It just seems a little bit soon. Either way, it doesn't completely hurt the entire record, or especially the song, because it has a nice pacing going on. It's definitely, again, it's one of the more slower songs on this one. It has a nice pace to it, but still, the lyrics are one of the ones that I kind of find to be just a little bit too soon, but not really anything that I completely condemn against, you know, a Project Resurrect here. It's still fine enough. But that's just my honest opinion. Still, either way, it's for what it is, it's a nice, solid enough power metal album from a very new band. Still, very new band here. So there we go. There is my thoughts on False Reality from Project Resurrect. And since I've got my notes right here, which has my rating, I'll tell you my rating right now. I'm giving it a 8 out of 10. Again, I think it's a solid album from these guys. Nothing really too amazing, nothing really completely, you know, stand out kind of stuff, but still is solid enough that I can at least listen to it, and enough to where I can recommend it to all of you. And if this does sound like something you want to check out, or you might be interested, or at least feel like you want to invest in listening to, I'm going to leave you a link to the Bandcamp page where you can listen to it on there, and of course even buy it physically. So I hope that is good enough for all of you. So with that, again, just a great album. So with that, hope all of you enjoyed. This is Heavy Thrash Sing. I am out. I'll see you all later. Take care, everyone.